Okay, we want to talk a little bit about national parks and wilderness areas. The National Park Service was established in 1916 and currently administers 388 sites. 58 are national parks, and these cover 34.1 million hectares of area. One of the primary roles of the National Park Service is education. They promote awareness of a natural environment, the management of natural resources, and they provide the history of the national park system. Success of the U.S. national park system has encouraged other nations to establish national parks as well. There's 3,500 national parks now in 100 different countries. On the left, you can see Yosemite National Park in California. This winter view shows the Merced River flowing past the rock formation in El Capitan. And here you can see a list of the national parks and the number of recreational visitors as of 2008 in millions. So what are some of the threats to U.S. parks? One is overcrowding. Also, with this come violent crime, vandalism, litter, traffic jams, pollution of soil, water, and air, and disruption of the ecosystem. There's also resource violations, such as cutting live trees, collecting live plants, minerals, fossils, and defacing historical structures. And there are also imbalances in natural populations. Many populations are in decline, such as bears. Parks may be too small to support populations of some animals. Other populations, such as elk, have proliferated to the detriment of the vegetation. The balance could be restored by introduction of a natural predator, such as the gray wolf. Here you can see an example of the disruption of our national parks. This is heavy traffic at Cades Cove in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park receives the most visitors of any of the U.S. national parks. The popularity of certain national parks threatens to overwhelm them. There's a shuttle bus at Zion National Park in Utah. It's been in operation since 2000. The Zion National Park shuttle system eliminates traffic congestion. During peak months, personal vehicles are banned from popular areas, and visitors instead ride the propane-powered shuttle. Here you can see gray wolves preying on elk in Yellowstone. Since the reintroduction of gray wolf populations, they have gained a secure foothold in Yellowstone. Early studies of the effects of these predators support scientists' prediction that wolves will help reduce the burgeoning elk population and restore the natural balance of the food web there. Let's take a look at wilderness areas. These are defined as protected areas of land in which no human development is permitted. The Wilderness Act of 1964, as well as the National Wilderness Preservation System, have allowed us the highest protection of any federal land in the world. There are 756 wilderness areas covering 109 million acres, and the number of visitors is restricted. The Omnibus Public Land Management Act of '09 designates 52 new U.S. wilderness areas and adds 2 million acres. It's opposed by those who do business on public lands and wish to use them to develop goods and services in order to expand the economy and create jobs. Here you can see at more than 3.7 million hectares, the Wrangell St. Elias Wilderness Area in Alaska is the nation's largest designated wilderness area. This is the Cabeza-Prieta Wilderness, Arizona's largest wilderness area. It includes 325,000 hectares of isolated desert landscape. And here is the Pelican Island National Wildlife Refuge in Florida, which is home to the 2.4 hectare Pelican Wilderness, which is the smallest protected area in the northwestern Pacific United States. It's also the tiniest protected area in the national park system. So let's talk a little bit about management of federal lands. Wise use management is just basically the partitioning of land use so that multiple functions can be carried out on the same area of land. This is multiple use management. People think that government overregulates environmental protection. and believe that the primary purpose is enhancement of economic growth. This includes many corporations, many with environmentally friendly names. The environmental movement is dedicated to the preservation of natural resources on federal lands for the legacy of U.S. citizens. And here we can see a logging site in Gifford-Pinchot National Forest Cascade Range in Washington. The wise use movement favors opening federal lands to logging and other types of economic development. So let's compare these two kinds of movements. The wise use movement would put all national forests under timber management, permit mining and commercial development, allow unrestricted development of wetlands, and sell parts of resource-rich federal land to private interests for resource extraction. Examples of organizations that believe in this movement include the National Wetlands Coalition and the American Forest Resource Alliance. The environmental movement thinks that the primary purpose of public lands is to protect biological diversity and ecosystem integrity. Those who extract resources should pay fair market value, and it should not be subsidized by taxpayers. Users of public land should be held accountable for environmental damage. So we get to our next concept check. What government agency administers the National Park System, and what problems does it face? The Department of the Interior administers the National Park System. This system deals with many problems, both human-related and also with wildlife. Human-related problems include having to deal with overcrowding, crime, vandalism, litter, traffic, and pollution. Some national parks have imbalances in wildlife populations and difficulties with encroachment on wildlife territory by human development. Next question. What is wilderness, and how does the U.S. National Wilderness Preservation System seek to protect it, and what problems do these areas face? Well, wilderness is defined as a protected area of land in which no human development is permitted. The National Wilderness Preservation System seeks to protect wilderness by ensuring that these areas remain natural and unchanged for future generations to enjoy. In wilderness areas prone to negative human impact and pollution, the National Wilderness Protection System restricts visitors and maintains trails, outhouses, cabins, and campsites. Next question, how do the wise use and environmental movements differ in their views on the use of public land? Those who wish to exploit resources on federal lands believe that the primary purpose of federal land is to enhance economic growth, are known collectively as the wise use movement. They generally think that the government overregulates environmental protection and that property owners should have more flexibility to use natural resources. Corporations often fall into this category. Those who wish to preserve the resources on federally owned lands include members of Earth First. They fall under the category of environmental movement, which believes that the primary purpose of public land is to protect biological diversity and ecosystem integrity. And as I mentioned, Earth First and Greenpeace would fall into those categories. Okay, let's look at conservation of land resources now. We'll name at least 3 of the most endangered ecosystems in the U.S. and describe several of the criteria used to evaluate whether an ecosystem is endangered. The U.S. Geological Survey and the Defenders of Wildlife commissioned a study to rank the most endangered ecosystems in the U.S. And they used 4 criteria. 1 is the area lost or degraded since Europeans colonized America. 2 is the number of present examples of a particular ecosystem. 3 is to estimate the likelihood that a given ecosystem will lose a significant area or be degraded in the next decade. And the 4th criteria is the number of threatened and endangered species living in that ecosystem. Implementing conservation strategies that set aside ecosystems is the best way to preserve the area's biodiversity. And so here we can see the 15 most endangered ecosystems in the U.S. in order of priority. And the top 3 include the South Florida landscape, the Southern Appalachia spruce fir forests, and the longleaf pine forests and savannas. and you can see the rest in Table 13.2 in your text. This is a pie chart showing protected areas worldwide, which represent 12% of the Earth's land surface. Only 0.5% of the marine environment is within the protected area, an amount considered inadequate by conservationists because of overfishing and coral reef loss. So here we can see a list of some of the land resources that are threatened. We've got national parks in Hawaii, Ecuador, the western U.S., Bolivia, Brazil, in the Arctic, in the continent of Africa, also in China, Russia, Indonesia, and New Zealand. And this is a worldwide map showing you wildlands indicated in blue and those that are covered by ice or snow indicated in white. The wildest areas on Earth are shown in this map. Although far from cities, the world's remaining wild places are vital to the global ecosystem. The Canadian boreal forests help clean the air we breathe by absorbing carbon dioxide and producing oxygen. With the increasing human population, many wild places could fall within reach of damaging human activity. Although we should point out at this juncture that actually most of the carbon fixation and oxygen production on Earth is done by marine algae. And so that's an ecosystem that is less threatened by human activity than terrestrial ecosystems are. Okay, last concept check. What are the 3 U.S. ecosystems that need protection? The U.S. ecosystems that need protection include the South Florida landscape, California native grasslands, and cave systems, but there are many others that we could list. Next question. What are 3 criteria used to evaluate whether an ecosystem is endangered? Well, has the area been lost or degraded since Europeans colonized North America? What is the likelihood that a given ecosystem will lose a significant area or be degraded during the next 10 years? Next question. What is the number of threatened and endangered species living in an ecosystem? And finally, we get to our case study for this chapter. This is the Tongass debate over clear-cutting. This is a rare temperate rainforest in Alaska's southeastern coast. It's made up of old-growth forests. Some trees are about 700 years old. It's a prime logging area. Until '97, logging companies paid below market value for the timber. In the last months of the Clinton administration, the United States Forestry Service adopted the roadless area conservation rule. The Bush administration blocked the rule and opened the forest to logging and development that had been off limits. As of 2009, Native tribe members and environmentalists are still challenging the continued road construction in the Tongass. And you can see pictures of it here in the inset. Okay, that brings us to the end of this chapter. Again, make sure and review this material as it will be covered on the final exam. And I will see everybody in class.